That's great.
Oh, there we go. A little bit more, Laura, if you can turn it. No, the other way. Yeah.
A little bit more, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit more. Whoop. Perfect.
Can you pan back just a touch or not?
Oh, okay. We're all set? Okay, I'd like to call the November 3rd, 2021 Niskayuna Conservation Advisory Council to order. And let's take roll call.
Okay, I see Miki. Vaisalit. Yeah. Ashok Rama Subramanian.
I'm here.
Hi, Ashok. Steve Burkholder's here.
Well,
Rihanna Sarkar.
Here.
And I heard Ellen. Hi, Ellen. Daviero.
Hi. Hi.
And Chairman Strayer. Did I miss anybody?
Nope, I think
That's
we're
everybody?
all set.
Okay.
Okay, we don't have any minutes to approve in this packet, so we're going to move on to the privilege of the floor. Laura, do we have anybody waiting to talk to us at all?
I didn't receive anything, and the public's welcome to attend these meetings without even signing up. So,
Okay, then privilege of the floor. Let's move on to EAFs. There are none on the docket, but we do have a discussion item, which is the development on Balltown Road. It's 1356 Balltown Road, and it is townhouses that are going to be proposed to be built between CVS and Channel 6 WRGB. We last saw the applicant come to this meeting on our October meeting, and we had some preliminary discussions. From what I understand, there have been some changes since we first looked at it, as well as additional information has been supplied to us, such as a traffic study. And Laura, do you want to talk a little bit about the changes that were made in response to the planning board?
yeah, I'm going to see if I can bring the packet up using the computer here.
Okay.
So let me see. Make this work. Every meeting is a new meeting, if anybody's wondering. Okay. Okay, can you guys see that shared screen?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So let me just zoom in here a little. So there's a couple differences in this plan. I think one of the things we noticed, sorry, this is a little cumbersome. Put that over there. We don't need it. Woo-hoo. Okay, so last time we looked at this, there were 4 buildings sort of between this entranceway and the existing home. And what they did was they moved one of the buildings up here. And there's sort of 2 forms of the building. One is the long form where the garage is in the back. Like, I don't know why it's doing that. It's super annoying. One is the long back there. And then the other one's more square. And they changed it. So now there's 3 of the square ones. There's a couple things that I think result from the change. There's less density along Van Antwerp down here. There's less density. These buildings are spaced a little farther apart. Before they were spaced a little bit closer together, and so they needed more area variances for the distances between the sides of the buildings. And so just in terms of like presentation of density to Van Antwerp, it's less. But the other thing that does happen when you move this up is it took away some of the open space. So it reduces some of the variances, but it did also take away some of the open space. I don't know if this came from us or it came from the planning board. We were concerned that there wasn't really any place for on-street parking, and that could be problematic. So they added some additional areas for parking here. So this is added since the last time you saw it, this on-street parking. And then another thing that we had noticed, or the planning board had noticed, was that it was very close to being connected to the CVS parking lot, but the connection wasn't fully there. And in this round of the plans, they made the connection. It would be an emergency connection, but it also works as a pedestrian connection. They made the connection to the CVS parking lot at the south. I believe the majority of the plan, besides those changes, is still what you guys looked at before, but they did also provide, this is the traffic, some additional information on the traffic here for you to look at. And
The other thing I
that's the
noticed
Genesee.
was they did incorporate our comment for a sidewalk from
And they did do
CVS
the
all the way
sidewalk.
up to the Van Antwerp apartment.
Oh, here's the traffic. Yes. So that's over here. Yeah, so the sidewalk's fully connecting now. Ooh, I'm sorry. Man, it's not quite as good as my laptop. I'll just go back to it. Here. The sidewalk now goes all the way to the Van Antwerp Village here and goes in front of the existing single-family home and connects to the existing sidewalk on CVS. So yeah, that was also an important addition. This is the table of the variances that they still need in red. And then the traffic summary is the next pages in your packet.
Okay, so can I just ask, I'm sorry, I just have some like really maybe dumb questions to ask, so I apologize. So for the, so 13, 14, 15, 15, 16, 17, and 18. So do they meet the proper width for the variance? Like, because it's saying the width here. So everything in red, they need to have we need to adjust in order for them to have that. Is that what I'm understanding? Or I'm sorry, I don't.
So everything in red is not meeting the zoning requirement, and they need to go to the zoning board of appeals to ask for relief. So like on the width, like the width in the R2 is required to be 80, but because there are duplexes instead of single family homes, the width's, in the range of the 40 to 50 feet wide. A couple of them are a little bit wider than that, but the only ones that meet the width are 21, 22, and 23, which I think are stormwater lots.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
So for a duplex, do they meet the proper variance for a duplex, and they need to have the variance change from single family house to duplex? Is that the?
No, our zoning allows for a single dwelling on a single lot. But there isn't forgiveness in the setbacks for a duplex. So our zoning is pretty unfriendly to duplexes. Really difficult to get them per zoning. I think the only way you can do them without needing area variances is potentially like a average density development or a planned unit development. Our code does allow a single dwelling on a single unit. So in theory, you could have a duplex, but it doesn't give you relief from the zoning setbacks if you're going to put in a duplex. So like the duplexes are on the lot line, right? They have a shared lot line that goes right through the building. And so all of those ones that are here, the side setback common lot line, that's all 0 feet because the line, some people call them zero lot lines, right? The line goes right through the building. So you obviously are not meeting a 15-foot setback where the buildings are joined together.
Okay, so why are there so many buildings if we're not meeting any of the code, any of the specifications? Like
So
not meeting the area, or like
the developer was here at the last meeting. It might be useful to listen to him explain this better, but they had two concepts, right? They have a single family home concept and they have the townhome concept. And I don't think the single family home concept is in the packet for this month, but it is in last month if you want to go back and look at it.
Yeah. No.
But I mean, there's the benefits to the townhomes, which we kind of looked at with the Celts, is obviously there's more green space, open space preserved that's not disturbed, and like the lawns are smaller, so you're developing a smaller area and you're leaving things more open. Versus like the outright subdivision where every lot is 18,000 square feet, each person, the limits of the lots go right to the boundary lines, and we love to try and keep them from cutting trees, but once they get in there, they can all clear cut their properties if they want. I mean, I know there's some people on the planning board that like the single family concept better than the average density, but I mean, there definitely are some benefits to an average density, like you get this larger open space.
I guess my question is that, so they have so many, they're not meeting, I guess I don't understand this very well.
Yeah, I guess, Laura, let me jump in for a second.
Okay.
One of the precursors to this plan is kind of in the background, is just there is a lot of area variances required for this plan to become approved. I think they need 73 area variances for this to work. They're down from 104 or something like that. So
yeah, I read that.
It's still maybe open for discussion, I think, with the planning board, whether they want to go through with this or not, or I mean, eventually that will have to go to the zoning board of appeals too. So
okay. I guess my thought is that I'm looking at all these variances, like 2 and 3, like they're short, and lot 12 is very short for, the front setback,
Right.
and then their square footage and just their width of these. So I guess, is it normal to accept a 46 foot as opposed to when you're asking it to be 80? Is that, I mean, I think that's a really big jump for a variance, or a 41. So,
but I think, Laura, if I'm understanding this right, the way they're doing this more as an average density development, they're kind of taking a different approach, and that approach is going to come with a whole bunch of area variances.
Yeah. So what Clark is saying is, if it's not a single family home that can meet the 15-foot side yard setbacks, that's not what they're proposing. They're proposing duplexes, and duplexes are allowed in the fact that you can have a single dwelling on a single lot, but they can't meet the setbacks that are designated in the R1 zone. So if you're going to propose a duplex, it is going to need these variances. So, I mean, you can get into the details of, can you do a 40-foot variance or can you do a 60-foot variance type of thing? But I think, like, holistically, if you want the single family homes, they won't need variances. But if you recognize that the townhomes may be more appropriate development for that parcel, then you do need area variances. And to Clark's point, the planning board may not have landed firmly on single family homes or townhomes. But I think the developer has decided that they believe that townhomes are a better fit. They think that it's better for our town center overlay district. You can put all the homes right to the street, and then you can keep more open space preserved. And it's just, I mean, they looked at a couple things and they felt duplexes. But if you're going to propose duplexes, they'll have all those area variances.
I don't think we should neglect the variances, because there are some concerns with the variances that I have. But I think the broader question is, do we think that a average density development is appropriate for this area? And part of the reason, if they had a bigger lot, I think it's 10 acres, they could do an average density development without any problems. The challenge here is this is like 5 acres, so it doesn't meet the threshold. And they're trying to do an average density in an area that's not set aside in the town code that allows it. It's sort of a mismatch between the town code and what the developer wants to do. So I think from my perspective, the big question is a development like this a benefit for the town, or is it not appropriate for the area? And I think that's the first question you get through. And then I think if we can come to some sort of discussion about that question,
Then you can
then maybe
minimize
we
the
can attack
variances.
some of the variances
Right.
and some of the layouts. But I think that's the big question here.
But the thing that you have to frame the question with is, it is allowed to be subdivided. So if you said no to the townhomes, then you would very likely see single family homes. So
Not all or nothing.
it's not all or nothing. It's,
Right.
you know, two choices of development. This is the developer's choice. The single family home version of it is in your packet from last month, if you want to look at it.
So I think, so this is just my opinion, obviously, but so the townhouses on Van Antwerp, I think, are fine within that set of what that neighborhood looks like, because you're right next to an apartment complex. You only have one set of, I think there's only one house in there, right? That I pass when I walk. Like, I'm trying to think, when I come up Hilltop and I go over, I think there's only one house in there between there and on the right-hand side, and the other side is left-hand side. And I also think that just traffic-wise on Van Antwerp, that the townhomes would be okay. And I'm not a big fan of the townhomes on Balltown Road. I'm just they don't go with the other houses, and it's just a whole lot of traffic. But that's just my opinion. So.
And I think, just kind of to Dart's point from the last planning board meeting, they talked a lot about, one of the hurdles they'll have to go over to get their area variances is look at, are there ways to minimize the variances that are needed? And that's what made them move that one building up off of Van Antwerp a little bit. So you could carry that a step further and say, is 10 buildings too much? That you're not leaving enough land like you would have in a more normal average density development. Is 8 buildings enough? And then that'll become a commercial question for the developer. The planning board has had those types of discussions.
So Ellen, I think you bring up a valid point, let's say, about the traffic on Balltown Road and the townhouses there. Could you speak more to that? And maybe we should look at the traffic study and see how the committee feels about that.
So I looked at that traffic study, and I'm no science expert, but I did not think that it spoke to the real challenges on Balltown Road. And the real challenges on Balltown Road start around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or in that commuter time. And can you imagine coming down Balltown Road and then trying to take a left-hand turn, and then having to wait for the light at either CVS or at forcing the backup on to wait to turn. Like, I mean, if you're trying to turn left into CVS, that most people go to the light to turn, so because they have that that ability to enter that way during that time. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And then I also think that it could force that backup at the the two at Stewart's and the gas station, and that light. I know that they're changing that, but I don't. The only way that you can prevent that from happening, I think, right there is a circle, and I don't think that's in the plans. But do you know what I mean? Like that, you can easily back it up there as well if you trying to take a left-hand turn into any of those houses, and it's busy with that traffic coming down off the hill from past CVS and stuff. So those are really difficult. I'm not sure how you can, how that shows up in a traffic study. And I guess it's, maybe it's only 1 or 2 people, and also they're only thinking that you're coming and going one time a day. So
So
I mean,
I'm just gonna I know I didn't invite the developer to the meeting tonight just so we could discuss, but I think that maybe just because some of us were at the last meeting, I'm just gonna summarize. For traffic studies, they use a manual. It's calculated across the country and it's standard and accepted. And that manual is used because they study over time how much traffic's generated by single family homes, how much traffic's generated by townhomes. And I mean, there's certainly going to be anomalies in that data. Like if there's something like extremely unique about your community and all the townhomes are filled with like 6 people instead of 2, but this is the average and it is scientifically accepted. It's the ITE trip generation manual and they've got it referenced there. And so, like the trip generation, I think is defensible and it's as good as it's going to get for when you're averaging or figuring out what a development's going to do here. And they're showing in this table, if they were to put the single family homes, they typically have bigger garages, typically slightly bigger families when you're looking at the ITE trip generation manual. So single family homes generate more cars than townhomes when they do these studies across the country. So single family homes in a peak AM hour would generate 17 trips over the course of an hour, where townhomes would generate 10 trips over the course of an hour. And I know that Balltown Road has problems and one person taking a left can back the cars up for 100 years. But I think it should be noticed that like 10 cars, when you're looking at the volume of cars on Balltown Road, like 10 cars over the course of an hour is probably not going to like significantly change the way that traffic works on Balltown Road. That's fair, I think. And the other thing to think about is that right now there's 4 curb cuts for the single family homes on Balltown Road. There's 4 existing driveways. They may not be used right now because I believe those homes are vacant, but if those homes were operating as single family homes as they used to, that's 4 people that are taking left in those driveways. And this proposal has 1 curb cut. So it's dissolving those 4. So 4 people that would be taking lefts off of Balltown Road into the driveways into a single curb cut. So there's only 1 place where you'd be coming out on Balltown Road under this proposal. I'm not saying that I agree or don't agree with any of the things that you're saying. I'm just, because I didn't invite the developer, I'm just letting you know like how this gets, reviewed by planning board.
yeah. So I'm not saying that I'm sure that this is all scientifically proven. I'm sure it's all, yeah. And I guess I understand the one spot, going in and out. At first I had thought that all those little lots were each individual, but they're just walkways to the, I thought that each individual like gray line was a driveway, but it's a walkway and that they only have access by the big curb cut.
Correct.
So
here's the only place. These are sidewalks.
yes.
Cars can only come out here.
Yes. So I still think that I'm just still going to hold that I think it's too many people. So, and I don't think it goes aesthetically with the area, but that's my opinion. So
You think, and I'm just clarifying because you think that the single family home proposal would be better.
So they're saying, so if I lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and I put in 3 homes right there.
No, you can fit 17 single family homes there.
Yeah, I wouldn't put 17 single family homes there either.
Yeah, so. I mean, I can, like, if you guys want, I can probably pull it up from last month's packet.
Why don't you pull it up? Because I think it would be helpful for the discussion.
Yeah.
If you can.
It's just like, I just want to put it into context what they're allowed to do versus what they're asking to do. I mean, they can put 17 single family homes there, which would generate more traffic than the townhomes.
Yes. And I just think less is more. So, but that's my personal opinion. And I think that there's, and I see the townhomes and they, and I mean, it's clearly less than 17 homes. So, but just because I don't like it doesn't mean that it can't happen. So,
Sorry, I will get it up for you. You guys don't have to watch me.
Yeah. And
Hold on. Carry on while I'm pulling it up.
Laura, a question came up this morning with the Architectural Review Board call. With that connection now to the CVS parking lot as an emergency exit or entrance, do they need that connection to Balltown Road?
Well, they couldn't use the CVS parking lot as a legitimate access to their homes. Like that parking lot isn't set up to be like a street or a thoroughfare. Like they would have to do something, I think, a little bit different than what they have with CVS right now. That's just set up as an emergency connection. But I know like at Complete Streets, they were saying you try again with WRGB because it would be so, like, it's much better to have that just be a single curb cut onto Balltown Road.
So are you saying they have to have two entrances to the?
No, I'm just saying like legally and logistically, I'm not sure that a CVS, like a driving through a parking lot would ever be considered like full access to their.
So I just want to be clear. Are you saying that would not be considered an emergency access?
No, it would be considered emergency access, but I don't think it would be considered like a main entrance into the
Right.
townhome.
So what I'm saying then is, do they need two main entrances to that?
So would you take the one from Balltown?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know. That's an interesting proposal, but I think, well, when you think about the Amador development, right, there was one entrance in and one entrance out, and it goes to E Environment.
So Amador has two entrances, but they're clustered together, and so they have an emergency entrance onto E1.
Environmental.
Yeah. It's a possibility, Clark. I didn't understand what you're saying, but yeah.
It's something that maybe we'll want to bring up with the planning board too.
Yeah. All right, so I've got it. It took me a little while. Oops. I do this on my laptop all the time, but you guys don't get to see me clicking all these buttons.
So the other thing too is that, with that back entrance, it's most likely that no one will try to make a cross street, turn, that they'll always try to go with traffic. Once they live there, they'll realize that doing that is just a headache, and they'll either, they'll come in through Van Antwerp and get to their places to live.
Okay, so I know it's probably a tad bit blurry for you guys, but this is a single family home proposal. So, they can fit 17 homes and 1, 2, 3. So like 3 driveways onto Balltown Road and then a road that aligns with.
Barcelona.
Is that Barcelona?
Barcelona.
Yeah. And then the exit point is similar to where it's proposed for the townhomes on there. But as you can see, like when it's single family homes, the lots are much bigger. They're required to be much bigger. And so there's essentially zero open space proposed here. Here's the stormwater detention pond versus the one thing that like Clark was kind of alluding to that I find annoying is that when they space these out to reduce the variances, I think they kind of drastically reduce the open space that was good about the townhomes, because this was the proposal before they moved the building. And you can see the whole corner. This whole corner was open space, but the 4 were clustered here. Now they have 3, but they moved this guy over. So you've got a bit of open space here and then this open space. And these wetlands were considered to be non-jurisdictional. So they can, by federal law, like just build right over top of them. But we know that there are wetlands there. So this proposal leaves a lot of the wetlands undisturbed.
And I think the planning board's request was actually to take a look at what it would look like with 9 buildings. So
with 9 townhome buildings, right? Instead of 10. Yeah. So instead of having 20 units, you'd have 18, which is closer to the 17 single family homes that you could fit there. This 17.
That wouldn't necessarily change the ZBA requirements, they would just lose one building on there? Or-
They would lose one building. They might be able to space them out even a little bit more.
But you would still have a lot of.
You're
would-
always gonna need that 0-foot variance because it's a duplex. It's sitting on the lot line.
Yeah, but a lot of those buildings along Van Antwerp, I think they actually need variances from one duplex building to the next duplex building.
These one.
So it would actually help with those a little bit. If you look at those 3 buildings on that front Van Antwerp, they're spaced a little bit farther apart, I believe, than in the previous version.
Here they are.
In the previous version, they need area variances for the side setbacks. So getting rid of one building does help. And in the previous version, that road coming into this little development off of Van Antwerp was only 5 feet from that one building. So that's what prompted the planning board to ask them to look at getting rid of one building. If you can see there, that building farthest to the right is only 5 feet from the road. And one of the requirements of the ZBA is, have you explored ways to minimize the variances needed?
Yeah.
So, Laura, with the 17 single-family homes, has there been any work done to validate that what they're calling the stormwater management area is large enough?
No, I think this is concept, so they don't really have to do engineering on either of the concepts until they take them before the boards.
Right.
But
So that could end up being 16 or 15 maybe or something?
it could, yeah. I mean, it doesn't look like a terribly outlandish sketch to me based on, subdivisions that we've seen before. But yeah, you might have to lose a house once you fully engineer it.
With 17 houses in the full build out, if they do average density, they are allowed up to the number of buildings that they would be able to do single family.
Correct. The only thing about that average density development that they're not meeting with their proposal for the townhomes is the average density development requires that it be a mix of single family and duplex, and they're proposing all duplex.
So I'm thinking suppose we said that this was appropriate place for average density. And we don't have a zoning capability here, but we could hold them to the spirit of the development, right? So they're proposing 20. Technically, they can only really have 17. Is that a fair assessment of the law's intent?
For an average density development, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. You can't go more than what you can show on a subdivision. I think that this is reasonable, but I don't think you could squeeze an 18th into this.
So I'm looking at this proposal now, and if you pulled out 2 buildings on here, so that would give them 16. You could probably hook the road up to Barcelona, and you could keep the open space.
If you got them down to 16 townhomes.
So they would be able to line up the roads that might mitigate some of the traffic concerns, and they would maintain the open space.
And I'm sorry, there is a reason why they didn't want to line it up with Barcelona, but I can't. Clark, do you remember what that was? Like maybe it was too close to the light.
It could be too close to the traffic light, maybe.
Maybe.
Possibly. I know
I thought they said they didn't want the through way going through the neighborhood
They
itself.
also don't want the through traffic. They're trying to make it tortuous so that cars don't take that as a cut through between Balltown Road and Van Antwerp.
But do you think that would,
Which is
does
good.
that really make a difference whether it lines up with Barcelona or not?
Well, I guess it would depend on how you lined it up with Barcelona. It's not currently lined up with any of them, but like what Complete Streets was saying is if you made it align with the WRGB entrance, remember, and then you curved it, it wouldn't even look like you were entering into a subdivision necessarily. It would almost look like you were going into a driveway to a business.
Yep.
And that would be even more of a deterrent to cars going
Yeah, I
through
mean,
this cut through.
that would be another way of doing it.
Yeah. Except we really think that WRGB hasn't been amenable to that kind of thing so far.
I guess my view on this is if you're concerned about the number of houses, you could approach the developer and say, look, if we adhere to this average density spirit of the development, you're allowed to have 17 units.
Yep, I definitely think that makes sense.
Because I know we brought the traffic up last time we discussed it, and that was a concern. In looking at this, I also the connection to WRGB. I know that WRGB has not been cooperative in the sense that they're willing to allow the developer to hook up, but potentially maybe that's worth exploring and maybe finding what their concerns are. Maybe those concerns could be mitigated somehow. Because I do think lining up the streets is better.
Mm-hmm. Lining up streets better.
So, and they're not, so they haven't done any sort of combo. They haven't done like houses on, 3 houses on Balltown Road or 4 houses on Balltown Road, and then, your townhouses, the townhouses on Van Antwerp.
They have not done a combo. Nope.
Or maybe it's better to talk about the zoning, right? We know that there's commercial neighborhood to the south. There's
Yes.
commercial neighborhood
To the north. Yes.
On the other side of Balltown Road, what is that zone? Is that
R2.
That's R2. And then on the other side of
Van Antwerp
Van
zone
Antwerp, it's R1.
R1.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, there are townhouses on Balltown Road, up the road a little bit. Is that?
Yes. Like when you get closer to like across from like the Ace Hardware, there's townhomes.
Is that commercial neighborhood?
Nope. That's an R2. They got use variance for those.
Okay.
So Laura, an interesting question is, did they get use variances just for the shared property line, so to speak?
For the ones that are a little bit north.
Yeah.
No, I think once you get a use variance, like you're just setting your zoning. So, I mean, they just said we're building duplexes and they got a use variance. I believe it was a use variance. I know we researched it before.
Do you know what the driver for that was?
They definitely went to the zoning board. If it was area variances, it would have been a huge packet. I think it was a use variance.
Okay. Because I'm just kind of thinking of what Dart said with the average, kind of follow the average density development. They're almost asking for a double whammy variance here, where you're getting that 0 setback to the shared wall, but then you're not meeting, in many cases, you're not meeting the side setback from one townhome building to the next townhome building. It seems like you could maybe give them the townhome concept where it's shared wall, but then say from building to building, you need to meet those side setbacks. In other words, space them out a little bit more.
Yeah.
These are.
You know what I worry about, Clark, on this is that if they go in, they're not meeting the sidelines and they're not meeting the minimum area for the lots for numerous cases.
Right.
And we had that case just down the road where the individual wanted to subdivide their lot. And basically we told them they couldn't do it because it wasn't in character with the neighborhood and they wouldn't meet the minimum lot size nor the width, right? So if they could go and approach this like a average density development, I think that would get rid of a lot of the concerns that I personally have about granting variances of individual items in an R2 area. Because what this could do is this could set up a precedent for people in Old Niskayuna maybe to subdivide a lot and not meet the requirements. So I think the key in my mind here is to treat it like an average density development. Could they get an area variance just for that one relief, seek relief just for that one thing and then treat it as that?
Well,
I'm not sure the way the law works.
we discussed that with them. It would be two things that they would need relief from the average density development though. And we think that they would still have to go to the zoning board for that. But it would be the total size. No, there's actually no, because an average density development doesn't apply to an R2 zone. So that's why I think it would have to be a use variance. But if you were treating it as though it was an average density development in R1 or RR, it would be the size, the total size of the parcel, and also the mixture, because they're still proposing all townhomes.
Yeah, but that's too,
Except you can't do average densities in an R2 zone. So an average density development is not an allowable use, even with town board approval. It's not a special use.
yeah.
Yeah.
But in my mind, if we held them though to that, the problem is we have to, if they're gonna go for this variance, somehow we have to get a framework in which to hold them in and basically use that as justification of why a development like this may be appropriate in this location, as opposed to just,
You could
coming
have,
along and asking for all these variances, because I'm sure if they came before the board and they had one house that they wanted to put 50-foot frontage in, the answer would be no.
yeah.
Right.
But it would essentially come down to a use variance for an average density development, which they would be writing their own rules for zoning anyway. You just wouldn't have a table of variances, but it would end up being the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So, but treating them to get them as close as possible to what an average density development would look like in an R2 zone, I think you could certainly do something like that, but you're still going to need a table of area variances. If, and this even goes back to Ellen's point, if, the general consensus is you would like to see more clustered development rather than the single family homes.
So, Ellen, does anybody else have any comments?
I had a quick question / comment, please. Has anyone else heard from the neighbors in the vicinity of the proposed development? I heard one person reach out to me and say that they're very concerned that it'll completely change the character of the neighborhood. I wanted to know if anybody else heard anything from the neighbors.
We've had some people come to the planning board meetings. The developers did document the comments that they got from the neighbors because they reached out to neighbors that had come before. So just for context, this is the same developers that proposed apartments and a mixed-use building on this property, which was going to be a zone change. So they were going to make the area along Balltown Road be a CN zone, and then the area adjacent to the Van Antwerp Village be an R3, because right now it's kind of a pocket of R2. But the general consensus on that was it was too high density, and people didn't want to see any more commercial in that area. And so at that time, they had some townhomes that they had thought, apartment units, mixed-use building, and then maybe some townhomes. And the townhomes seemed to be the most well-received thing during the public comment. And I'm talking extensive public comment. I think we probably at some point had, 60 people in the planning board rooms a couple years ago on this. And so they heard that the people didn't want apartments, didn't want mixed-use commercial, could potentially tolerate the townhomes or single family. And so they went and then they did a couple designs and they shared with the neighborhoods. And they have, if you want to look in the planning board packet, a summary of the public comment feedback that they got from the neighbors. I think it was mixed, generally speaking, better than the initial proposal, but still felt like the density and the clustering of the townhomes was too dense. And but some people were okay with it. I think it was a mixture, but I would, and Clark, jump in here if you can remember something that I'm not capturing. I feel like the majority of the comments that I read were still too dense.
Yeah, and I think they actually did a pretty good job of addressing the comments as I remember it.
But it hasn't gone out to public hearing on this proposal yet, Ashok. It would not go to public hearing until it goes before the zoning board. That's just the way it works.
Can I just ask a question about the height of the townhomes? Are they similar to the height of, say, the other houses or the other townhomes that are up the street on the left-hand side?
I mean,
There's no elevation in it.
well, yeah, there's actually elevations here, but I don't know if they have. Oops, I'll share my screen again. Hold on.
Yeah, I have the picture in front of me, so, but I just don't, let me just look. I have it all in front of me. I'm just like,
This is the old packet. That's the, I mean, they don't have the elevations on them. Single family homes can't be taller than 30 feet. There's no way these things are taller than 30 feet. They're probably similar in size to the homes that are across the street.
With these,
to the homes that are across, the townhomes that are across the street.
Oh, the townhomes on Balltown Road. I brought those up. That's here. I mean, I think
Yeah.
you guys probably all know. There's kind of like a bunch of trees, but you can send you-
Yeah.
These things, I mean, they don't even go on the market. They sell so quickly. They don't even ever make it to market, and they're kind of old.
Yeah, but they're so nice. I mean, the trees in front of them really obscure them. I mean, they're low. They, yeah.
But see, yeah, these are 2 stories with a roof, so they're probably similar in size to those.
yeah, I was thinking they'd be likened to the ones on Hummingbird.
Probably similar to Hummingbird. We could drop a pin on there too. Yeah.
I can go look at those ones.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, Ellen, a couple points. I actually think that if you're going to put townhouses, you should bring them to the street. Actually having that parking lot in front of the houses set off from Balltown really does not promote walkability, in my opinion. I think if you have houses right along a street, it makes the street interesting. You don't have parking lots. I actually think that studies show that there's more walkability if you have an interesting street. And that would get to my second observation on this. And this is just sort of where my head is. By putting townhouses here, we're bringing people into the downtown area. And it's conceivable that people could live in these townhomes and you could walk to the co-op and get your meal. You could walk to the pharmacy. You could walk to town hall. So it does bring people into the downtown area. And maybe it provides an opportunity for people who don't drive or maybe elderly to stay within Niskayuna and walk to stores. And there's not a lot of opportunities in Niskayuna. We have a lot of apartments, but they're not near any shopping. And I think that is a vacuum in the town currently. Now, I'm not addressing the character of the neighborhood or the surrounding neighborhood. I'm just talking about the potential need. And it does provide a diversity of housing here. Not to say that your comments aren't valid. I think your comments are very valid about the character and fitting it in.
No, I agree that what you're saying is definitely valid, that it makes it, it could make it a more walkable community for, those people. But yeah.
Does anybody else have any more comments on this?
Not a comment, but a quick clarification. Laura, you were mentioning how one of the proposals preserves more green space versus the other. Is there a number like proposal 1 preserves, X acres, proposal 2 preserves approximately Y acres, something like that?
Well, yes. If you look here, this is the single family proposal, which is allowable under the R2 zone through subdivision with no variances required. And there's no open space here. Like, the planning board may be able to negotiate a lot based on our code, but like each lot is about 9,000 to 10,000 square feet because it's an R2 zone. So you may be able to get about 10 to 15,000 square feet of open space in this one if you lose a home. But essentially, this one is proposing no open space. Sometimes they'll work with the planning board to do credits and parkland fees because the land, it doesn't lend itself to open space. If you left one of these lots open, it would be a negotiation with the planning board whether or not they would pay fees or they would leave some land open. But so probably about 10,000 square feet. Where this
Okay.
one, if you zoom in on this, which I'm not sure I'll be able to read it, but he has.
Oh, it says
area-
it's about 1 point. So you have 1 acre in one area, 0.1 in one, and 0.3
Yeah, he's got it
in another.
labeled.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 acre there and 0.1 acre there. That's what Ellen just said.
And then 0.3 plus over there on the left, right there.
Oh, right here,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if I add it up, it comes to about 1.5 acres total.
1.3 acres. Oh, 1.4.
Okay, about 1.4 acres.
I think.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be right with you. Okay, and one very broad question, please. Like, is there a housing crunch in our town? Like, are people trying to buy houses in Niskayuna and coming up empty-handed?
I am not a great housing expert, but what I can tell you that we've heard at the planning board multiple times is that we don't have a diversity of housing and there's a strong need for duplexes and places where there aren't as big yards, but people can stay in their community. So people aren't looking. It's a little bit interesting because I think both of these are 2-floor, but if you look at their floor plans, I don't think you have to go on the second floor. I think a lot of people are looking for single floor living, so that they can age in place, but not have to maintain the yards and the trees and all the things that come with the single family homes. So we have heard, and we don't have a lot of duplexes. Like you can count them off in our community. You've got, Cary Court, you've got Hummingbird, you've got the ones on Balltown Road here that kind of are a use variance case that I don't even know where it came from. To your question from before, I'm not sure. But there's not a lot of these kinds of things in our neighborhoods. In the town of Niskayuna, we mostly have single family homes. So as far as the demand for single family homes in Niskayuna, I mean, I think it's pretty standard for the capital region right now. It's still pretty high. But my understanding of the market, and no expert, it's just what we've heard at planning board, is that there's a huge demand for townhomes.
And the townhome option is the one that preserves more green space, correct?
That's this one. It does preserve more open space because you're clustering the homes together, but you need area variances because they're no longer meeting their setbacks. Although, like to Clark's point, they sort of look like a single building, right, with 2 entrances. If you can make the single buildings meet what a single family home would look like, so they don't need area variances between the buildings, they just need the area variances because there's a lot line that goes down between them. I mean, that may be a really good, important goal.
Okay, my questions are answered. Thank you very much, Laura.
They don't meet the diversity of economics, though, correct?
I mean, we would love for them to be affordable housing, but I think generally speaking, they're proposed to be high end, like just with finishes and things. That's just the way that the developers like to do these things.
I think they may even have some of that research in their packet where they've responded to speaking with the neighbors. I think they do their homework, so I would guess that they have this zeroed in on what they really feel there's a need for.
I don't think they're not. I mean, they're not like below 200,000 though. I think they're easily like 350
Right.
maybe. Yeah.
Oh, one quick follow-up question, please. Like we know recently, I mean, as recently as last year, I think like the town has something called a new task force for, oh my God, I'm blanking out. Racial equity.
Yeah, the
income
racial
equality.
equity group, yes.
Yeah. Like
They do.
have
And one
they
of
had
theirs
any
is
input on
housing.
the housing. Like, have they had, like Like, were they able to provide any kind of input on housing regarding like attracting more diverse people and things like that?
So just so I know from somebody that's on it, that they have many subcommittees and that they are working on that, but it's definitely a work in progress. But I'll yield to Laura, and she knows more.
Well, no, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I was able to attend one of their. I think Priti Irene is the one that's working on studying the neighborhoods for affordability and housing and different effects of zoning and things on neighborhoods over time in Niskayuna. And I told her I would love to take what they're figuring out and put it in our comprehensive plan and things like that. But they don't have any recommendations yet. They are studying diversity of housing and what we need and what would be helpful to diversifying and making Niskayuna more affordable. If you look, I think Niskayuna is definitely it's expensive to live in. It's very hard to find affordable housing in Niskayuna, like very hard. There's very few opportunities for affordable housing in Niskayuna.
It would just be a shame if we develop all our area before we're able to address some of those issues.
I second Ellen's point. Like, at this point, there's not a lot left, and yeah, it would be a shame if everything is gone and we can't really diversify our town.
I'm just curious what
Turn your
what
microphone
kind
on.
of population would kind of purchase these townhouses, because it has second floor, so maybe not many seniors would like to purchase these townhouses because of that. But then like young families, if they would invest 350K for a townhouse, they might look around the single houses that they can afford with the same price range. They don't necessarily have to look for a townhouse, by the main big road, by paying 350K. So I'm just curious what kind of people would really look for these townhouses. Just
So
a comment.
You're concerned that the houses, as our understanding now, would not sellable because there's not a market.
I'm not quite sure because I'm not really an expert, but
Yeah, no,
it's
I'm just asking for clarification.
Yeah.
So
Maybe.
I don't have
I'm
the
not
floor
quite
plan,
sure.
but I think I've seen these, and I think
Yeah.
the floor plan shows the master suite and all livability space on the first floor and accessory bedrooms on the second floor. That seems to be very typical of townhomes. So it still attracts older people because they still are going to have grandchildren visit. They're still going to have, they like to have spare bedrooms, but they don't need to use that space. Essentially, you just keep it closed until you have somebody come and visit you. But I mean, obviously they're affluent. Like, you're not going to be buying a duplex for $350,000 if you're not affluent. That's a really expensive piece of real estate to be buying. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I asked him last time specifically, and that was what he said. Because I asked about if the master was on the main floor, and because I didn't think it was, and he corrected me and said that yes, they were.
Yeah, I think I've seen them. They definitely are. I do think that they appeal to aging in place because the entire livable space is on a single floor, but you do have spare space on the second floor if you want to use it.
In fact, a neighbor of mine moved out of his single-family house and moved to Hummingbird for that reason.
All the livable space.
And basically, before he left, I asked him what his motivation was, and it was no yard work, even though his single-family house is immaculate. And the fact that, he's getting older, he was living by himself, and he wanted to live in a smaller house.
Okay.
So-
See. Yeah, that makes sense.
But I mean, another thing to think about is just the location of these is probably going to command a higher price because of walkability. So if you were to plunk these down, on the outskirts of town, they probably wouldn't command the price that they're going to command. But I do think that he's putting they're probably putting high finishes in it anyway, but just by the location, because it is so walkable and you're right in downtown Niskuna, you're probably looking at a higher price point anyway.
So we've been talking about this for about an hour. I'm wondering, do we have any specific questions or do we have any specific needs from the developer that we could sort of put together a list? Because we will have to make a decision on this probably in the next meeting.
Yeah. So I wrote down, it would be interesting to look at how close we can adhere to the average density development requirements, even though they don't apply to R2 zone. I wrote down the comment that lining up the streets we still feel is better, although that actually came to you, so we would have to make sure the whole commission agreed. And then we would like to see diversity and affordability of housing incorporated into the plan.
I also heard Ashok saying that open space is very important.
And the open space.
Preservation of it was a goal. Would that be accurate, Ashok?
Yeah, I think he stepped away for a second, but I also, in those, we also had put in prior to, in one of the prior notes, that we had put in, was just about the same things that we always ask for. I'm searching for them right now. I thought they were in here.
Yeah, we did bring that forward, like the sustainable lighting and
Yeah.
no pesticides
tree.
on the lawn. Yeah.
We requested a tree planting plan,
Yep.
requested the inclusion of solar energy technologies, pesticide-free lawn care, and the details of the stormwater plan. That's the things. Ashok's back, you can ask him.
Yeah.
Which they won't necessarily do the details of the stormwater unless they get variances, because that takes a lot of engineering. But we had said, and I think we could comment, I'm not even sure. We probably actually don't have to take action at the next meeting, but they won't do a lot of engineering without going to the zoning board first.
Yeah. But we will probably have to make comments for the zoning.
I was just saying that they have to do a secret determination if it's a use variance, but they don't do secret determinations on area variances because
really?
the commanding agency is the planning board.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they take precedence on use variances because they're the highest level of approval, but on area variances, like if we send, a CVS to them and it's got a parking area variance, the zoning board doesn't take action on seeker and then send it to the planning board and the planning board take action on seeker. The planning board takes action on seeker. That's it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we would still have input.
Yes, we absolutely can input. Yeah, because so the zoning board has certain criteria that they use for area variances, and it would be, I think, reasonable and good for the CIC to give them a recommendation on some of the environmental impacts as they're reviewing the area variances. Yeah.
So at this stage, if we have no other questions or comments, I just would like to reiterate, the option here is to decide whether this is an appropriate use for this area, weighing the pluses and minuses, and the alternative is potentially single-family homes there. Leaving it vacant is really not a potential in this particular location. Would you say that's fair?
I think that's fair. I think they will do something. They have invested quite a bit already. So,
does anybody else have any more comments before we move on? Okay.
So I would just say, I thought Ashok was going to talk. So I would just say that I agree with the if you're with keeping as much open space as you can with those townhomes, but perhaps losing that a building, especially that back building, and just leaving those three there. That would I'm the less is more. So anything you can get rid of would be great.
Yeah, trying to bring the number of townhomes down to what the number of single family homes would be. Yeah.
I'd like to second what Ellen said and add a strong support for the preservation of the existing wetland.
Steve or Mickey, did you have anything?
Anything else?
No? Okay.
Okay. Hearing no more, let's move on to the reports. So in our packet, Laura included Rivers Ledge Senior Housing, and that was originally proposed as part of development off Aqueduct, and then it got delayed. So Laura, do you want to fill us in on?
Oops. Yeah, so we haven't even really gotten the full submittal of this. I think it's going to the planning board for concept on Monday, but I like to have you guys at least have the maps ahead of time so you can be thinking about things. So Rivers Ledge, you've looked at a bunch. Rivers Ledge, the 16 10-unit apartment buildings are up here. This is the new recreation building that, I let you guys know that they had amended. They got a big buffer down there. Initially, Rivers Ledge is a planned unit development, and so it was approved as 16 10-unit apartment buildings, clubhouse, now recreation center, and then 100 senior living apartments along Aqueduct Road here with commercial space. Their initial PUD showed disturbance, solid disturbance from this road all the way to that road. So there was two buildings really that spanned this entirety, and they were connected by a pool. And I think that this little guy, which you can't really see because maybe I'll zoom out one. I sort of like, I zoom out one. No. Well, it won't let me. Sorry. This little guy over here, I think was just proposed to be a parking lot in the original PUD. The original PUD for the senior living apartments, they recognized that it was going to be 2 acres of disturbance to wetland. So this little guy with all the dots is a wetland. And obviously you can't disturb that much wetland without an Army Corps of Engineers individual permit. So an individual permit process with the Army Corps of Engineers is extremely lengthy, and it goes down to the state, New York City, and it's approved. It's not locally approved, and so they're really difficult to get because that's a lot of wetland disturbance, and you have to offset a lot of wetland disturbance as well. So I think that what they decided to do, because they had talked to the Army Corps a little bit, was not disturb this whole thing. It just seems to be too much. So they took it from originally 100 units. I believe they've got 60 on here now. What do they have, Clark?
60, it says.
60, okay.
Yeah, 60.
So 60 units over here. There's a little bit of commercial space on the corner, which the planning board had talked about during the original PUD. I think the CAC saw it too. They were hopeful that it could be some kind of cafe, bike shop, barber in support of all the different apartments here. And then the thing that is, I think, quite different about this proposal versus the one that was before is that this is a standalone commercial building here. Probably lends itself to like a restaurant, it would be my guess, because it's standalone and it's in a residential area. Something we could discuss. Maybe a medical professional building. I don't know. So much less disturbance of the wetlands and a reduction in actually both commercial and units. But I think generally speaking, still in keeping with what was approved by the PUD, but could maybe use some tweaking, my opinion.
So Laura, it still looks like they are disturbing some of the wetlands.
Oh,
right?
they definitely are. I think they still need an individual permit with the Army Corps of Engineers. It's still enough that it's not under a nationwide permit, but it's not 2 acres of disturbed wetlands
They're
anymore.
trying to stay under a threshold.
I think they may, like, you can't disturb more than 1/4 of an acre without getting an individual permit with the Army Corps of Engineers.
Mhm.
And they're definitely disturbing more than that. They, I think, have to still get an individual permit with the Army Corps of Engineers, but it's not 2 acres. I think they're at like 1/2 acre, maybe a little bit more. So that's mostly just a heads up. We'll have probably the applicant here next time and more details. But if you guys had any initial questions or comments, it's on there as a report, just so you have the map and you can start thinking about it, building it, drive by, take a look. The apartment units that are being built now were the redevelopment of the junkyard. There wasn't a lot of clearing that needed to be happen. It was just a lot of removal of junk vehicles. This is a forest. I mean, and it is much more visible from Aqueduct Road right now. I think when you're driving down Aqueduct Road, you can see some of the buildings, but it's through the forest. When you take the forest down and you put this, I think it's 2-story building.
It's 3-story.
Is it 3-story? It'll be.
It's low though, right?
I mean, this is the highest part on the site. So the aesthetics of the building, and the planning board put this in its PUD. The aesthetics of this building are going to be the most impactful of anything on this PUD. And so they had said they wanted to keep the rural character. I actually think this came from you guys. The planning board put it in the resolution, but I think it came from the CAC. That they wanted to keep the rural character of Aqueduct Road.
Yeah.
They wanted to see like the front of the building very treed. They wanted to see it look very residential. So all of that stuff has to come to bear again now as we're reviewing it again, because this is the actual proposal that they have, not the conceptual.
Mhm.
So I don't remember this. I don't remember this building. I remember all the apartments over there in the park, but this is coming. I'm drawing a blank on
Probably.
seeing this
Been a
before.
long time.
Yeah, it was 2016, 2017.
Okay.
I don't think you
Okay, it was before me.
I think
Okay.
it was before you. Yeah.
Okay, because I don't like this at all. This is not like, I'm okay with that. Yeah, never mind, I'll be quiet.
No. I mean, this proposal came along, and at the time, the town still had the Williams Auto Dump sitting in this site. So, context, the developer had to go through a lot of hoops in order to even build the apartments on the other side of the bike path.
Yeah, you can really see those apartments when you drive over the Rexford Bridge coming here. I've noticed them quite a bit being developed as I'm driving over, especially as the leaves are going down. I mean, those I think will, it's much more pleasant to look at than the junkyard that was there.
But this building is obviously bigger, and it's right along the road, and it has a decent amount of tree clearing. So I think phase 2, there was always some element of we're definitely going to need to work on the aesthetics and mitigating the impacts of it. I think it's an important part of the PUD because you have to have a diversity of housing and commercial. But I definitely think that, we need to return to our comments and make sure that we're keeping in the spirit of the Aqueduct Road neighborhood, which is really, like I think we had said at the time, and I said it already, like rural as far as Niskayuna goes. So
You can make it look like a barn.
Clark, did they? I didn't put it in here, but did they have a rendering of this? I think they did, didn't they?
I don't think they do.
Oh, they don't. Okay.
I'm not being just flippant here. I'm actually saying you could integrate it to make it look like a rural building.
Yeah.
Or no, they do have an image of this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's flat roof and stuff, so it definitely needs some
It needs some work,
work. And like we also I think need to hone in on this little guy over here because this is actually different than what was in the PUD, and so understanding what this space would be used for, and making sure that it's
Yeah,
also
the one
looks
thing
nice.
we wanted to do is make sure it was accessible and not someone would get in their car and drive to it.
Right, yeah, because it's right along the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike
Yeah,
Trail.
yeah.
And like right now, there's really not a lot of places. I mean, there's parks and stuff to stop, but like this would be an amazing spot that people who are traveling up and down the Mohawk Bike Hike Trail could
Be able to stop.
take advantage of, as a destination.
Yep.
Yeah, so that'd be cool.
Okay, why don't we move on to the second item in the report, and that's 1851 Union Street, and that has the Mohawk Club.
Oh, I didn't put anything in there because we looked at that.
Yep.
So I just wanted to let you guys know that one went through and was approved, and they'll probably be starting to build it this fall.
Okay. Number 3, 2733 Rosendale Road, a site application for a pesticide-free Korean apple orchard.
So that's just Clark and I are still working with the owners on that. This is just a heads up on the concept. I think there's a lot more that needs to be fleshed out. But like because you guys only meet once a month, we like to put these things on your radar. This I think is like if they were to put in a orchard, it's a decent amount of clearing. So we probably need some stormwater. There's some wetlands and some drainage back there that we would need for them to avoid or mitigate. And so they've got to get some more plans to us, but this is like that kind of tight bend on Rosendale Road where Partridge Farm sticks out. And this is that nice house with the pillars. We saw a proposal for a potential subdivision quite a few years ago. Probably, I don't expect any of you to remember it. It got denied, but the new owners are thinking about putting an orchard back there. So maybe drive by and keep that one in mind. Thoughts and questions on it.
So that's the house that was for sale, and the person who purchased it wants to put an orchard behind their house.
Correct. Yep. Clark and I have to work with them exactly on code, but this was the proposal we received, so it would definitely need CAC review.
So those parcels are fairly big. I mean, we're talking about what, 10 acres?
Yeah, it's enormous. Yeah. It is zoned rural residential.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it started out as just he would like to put an orchard there, but then once Laura dug into it and looked at a survey map, the wetlands, and there might even be a stream through there, that considerably complicates it because of the setbacks required. So, I mean, when he cleared it, it would be like he's building a building there, but he's building an orchard instead. But he has to respect the wetlands and the stream. So, and then there's a question of would that orchard be a second use that would require a variance? So this is by no means a really straightforward project.
Wouldn't that come under an agricultural use, though? It seems like that's in the zoning.
Yeah, Clark and I want to look at it. Like,
Yeah.
if you just look at the zoning straight out, it says the permitted principal uses are single-family home and farming, and you obviously can't have two permitted principal uses. It doesn't have farming as an accessory use. I know it's a technicality, and there may be some like rural residential things in there.
If you live on a farm.
Yes,
Yeah.
agreed.
House.
Our
Yeah.
code doesn't quite read like that, but like logically that makes sense,
Yeah.
which is why Clark and I have to look into that a little bit. Yeah.
So
I had a concern about that place. Like it's a large amount of area and it's really close to the state park. And it's considerable clearing of open space. So I had some concerns about the proposed orchard.
Yeah, I think it would definitely need CAC approval as they move forward because it's a lot of clearing.
So can I also just ask a question just in general about just the type of Korean apple? So this is so my parents grow these on their yard. So they are very susceptible to animals eating them. It's very difficult to, you often, unless they're netted. So I don't know. I mean, they might be experts doing this, but I'm just going to throw this out there that it's not that easy. Like this is a hard, this Asian pear, if it's what they're trying to do, is a difficult plant in this area to, the amount of sun that you need and the amount of protection you need from the squirrels that will eat them. You have to either have to tent them, to keep the squirrels out, or you have to pick them very young and then you have to ripen them. I mean, they're doing 100, so maybe they're just thinking, sorry. Oh, did I misunderstand how many they were putting in there?
I don't think they say, do they?
No, for pesticide free. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity. So they might be experts. I mean, they probably will have somebody come and plant them for them. But just speaking from experience of having to pick them and having to net them and unnet them from at my own, and my parents are experienced growers of all sorts of fruit trees. So. And they also, and because of the weather here is, mostly it's the animals, but that's my 2 cents. They are very delicious though. And I have some if you'd like them.
I tried them before and liked them.
Do we have any more comments? We'll be able to discuss this.
When it comes further, like I said, we like to just get these things on your radar so you've got them in your mind when you see them in the packets.
Okay, the next discussion item or report is the calendar. And the calendar is in our packet. You're basically asking us to look at this and ask for our approval.
Yeah,
Next
because
meeting.
next meeting would be the approval. So take a look at the dates, make sure they work for you guys. See if there's anything in there like, that conflicts with school or holidays that Clark and I didn't identify. I actually don't think we had to have any ones that were irregular necessarily. It looks like June is June 8th instead of June 1st.
Okay, we'll get back to you on that.
Yes, get back to
Okay.
us on that.
Item number 5, NRI. Ashok, do you want to fill us in on what's been going on with the NRI?
Sure, happy to, Dot. So our funding for the preliminary NRI to get the project started was approved by the Niskayuna Community Foundation. So that's $2,000 to start the project. And Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, it goes to the town board, well, for something
Tomorrow.
on November 4th, and then Laura signs and formally accepts the money.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so and this is, as you know, for a mini NRI project, preliminary data, if you will, that we can use to write a full-fledged grant application to the DAC, to the DEC, and Jim Nordgren was here in May of this year, and he'll be coming back to do the preliminary NRI. The intent is to again have a site visit in the spring, April, May timeframe, and then talk about the bobolinks and the meadowlarks and all that. And for the mini NRI, we selected Blatnick Park, which is which hits a lot of points. Well, first of all, it's next to the river and very rich in biodiversity. Secondly, it's very accessible. No special permits or anything like that are needed. The town owns it, and many people are familiar with it. And one of the main aspects of our natural resources inventory is public outreach and making the public aware of the importance of green space. So it'll be very easy to for the public to come there and participate. And then Jim will write up the mini NRI. And then we will use that to write a bigger grant. Does anybody have any questions?
Great job, Ashok.
Yeah,
That was all you.
Oh, go ahead.
Laura,
I would just like to thank you.
With the November 4th town board meeting.
Yes, it's on for the November 4th.
And then we will pay Jim once that's done.
We could sign the contract with him. We don't typically pay him until he's worked. That's just how the
Understood. Oh, and I had one question, please. The agency within the DEC that funds NRI for the Mohawk River areas, it's called the Mohawk River Watershed Program. They are not answering my emails, not returning my phone calls, and believe me, I have tried.
They're a very small office. And I don't think that's, whether it's good or bad, that's not particularly unusual for the state. And they are a very small office. I think there's 3 of them. maybe
Well,
only two.
do you have contacts, Laura, with them?
Yeah. And I think one of them may even be out right now. I talk to them regularly. They're wonderful people, but they really are. They just are hard to get a hold of. They're managing the entire, state program, and there's like two of them. So there's me.
I have two questions for you then. Then, like the next time you said you speak to them regularly. The next time you speak to them, can you put in a word about the NRI?
Yes. I just would like to say the town has received 2 Mohawk watershed grants. I mean,
Okay.
not all communities are eligible, but I think it makes it harder for us to get the Mohawk watershed grants if we've already gotten 2, like relatively big ones. So, but I do love them. They're great, and the more we can talk to them, the better. And I will put in a plug for our NRI, definitely.
Sure. And like if I write up something, can you forward it to your contact there?
Yeah. And I mean, the other source of grants that we identified was like the clean energy community, climate smart certification, things that come out. So, there's a variety of places that we can look to for the full NRI when we're ready.
Sure. And and we could also go back to the Niskayuna Community Foundation. They do have a $10,000 grant that they award, but one step at a time. This is a big multi-year project, and I think everyone understands my passion for conservation of green spaces and public outreach and all that. I don't think that's a secret, and I'm very grateful that for all your help, Laura and Dot and other members of this committee for helping us get this far.
Yeah, no, I'm very pleased we got the grant. I'd like to thank you, Ashok. I know you put in a lot of effort to make this happen, and you were on it. Spent a lot of time prodding and pulling this together. So thanks a lot. I think it's a real benefit for the town.
And at some point, we need to incorporate the NRI process with the next comprehensive plan. Dot or Laura, do you know anything about how that process works?
We've been talking about it at the Economic Development Committee. Probably we'll need to start appointing a comprehensive plan committee, at the end of December and early January. And then those people start combining all kinds of things that we want to make sure are included in our comprehensive plan, like the natural resources inventory, the racial equity, and more complete streets, I think. So there's a lot of things that we want to include. Oh, and even for points for clean energy to put sustainability in our comprehensive plan. So yeah, it's going to be an undertaking, and it requires like Clark Dart was telling me. I was not here for a comprehensive plan, but I think you guys met instead of like once a month, it was like once or twice a week for a little bit, right? I mean, it was a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we met formally twice a month. The meetings were usually like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then we would have informal meetings at least another Friday. We would meet with the town planner to discuss issues and stuff.
So we'll be reaching out for people for the comprehensive plan, but we just want to make sure that people understand that it is a huge time commitment. Well, we will need people though, for sure.
Yeah, and that doesn't include the time that people spent away from the meetings.
Working on
stuff as well.
Yeah.
Well, I would consider it, Laura. I would consider seriously serving on the committee.
Sounds good. So I'll keep you guys all in the loop. Do not feel like you need to volunteer because you already do not. But if you can, I'll keep you guys in the loop.
I mean, I'll have to talk to my family, but this is something that I could potentially take on.
Okay, let's move to item 6, pesticide outreach update. Ellen, do you have anything for us?
I don't think really. I just would just say that I thought that over the summer, the going to the farmers markets was really helpful and was a really nice way to connect with people. it is clear that there is the great, that there are a lot of people who have seen the signs and that are interested. And then there's the great divide between, just an actual lawn service that will provide you with a pesticide-free way to get rid of pests. So that's seems like the big hang up in the community, and then some people, because most people just say they like their lawn and they don't care that there's pesticides. So, but that they don't want pests in their yard. So, but other than that, I thought it was plugging along. I mean, I still have the display in the town hall. I'm just going to leave it there. I guess it doesn't matter that it's for the summer or the winter. And then, yeah. And if anybody has, the last couple of months, last like month or so, I'm distracted by a few things, but if anybody has any ways or another, outlet that they could suggest to me, I can start working on that.
Great. Ellen, do you have a number, since we launched the program, how many pesticide signs are out there? How many of those signs are out there?
I don't, but I'll work on that. My bin at the.
Oh.
We have that.
We do?
Alan and Ashok, we can get that for you because Jean has a list, so we can easily get that tomorrow.
Okay, in that bin, I don't think I did the last one. I was supposed to do one more, but unfortunately, I had to attend a funeral service, so I wasn't able to do the last farmers market, and I had to cancel. So what I don't know is if that the money got taken out, and so I have to come by the town hall tomorrow for a meeting at 10 a.m. So I could swing by and just grab that bin and look at all that stuff, and I can start that process because yeah, I could do that.
Ellen, let me just say, thank you for spearheading this project. It's a fantastic project. I talk about it to my friends and neighbors all the time. And in my workplace, we are starting a pesticide reduction program at Union College. And I often use this example as a community that is doing the same thing.
Oh, great. I'm glad that they're doing a pesticide reduction. That's awesome.
Yes, we no longer use Roundup. It's completely eliminated. Pesticide use is drastically reduced. In particular, pesticides will not be applied when students are in session. And there are more weeds on the college campus, and we are working with Union College Communications to do a massive outreach program to educate people that, when given the choice between non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and weeds, it's better to choose weeds.
So I'll just give you this one little, I know we've been here for a long time, so I'll just give you this one little soundbite. So there was this little girl and she came to up to the table with her mom, and she did this, maybe like 5th grade or 3rd grade program where she talked to her classmates and she asked everybody, if they thought that dandelions were weeds, and they asked, if they liked dandelions, and all the kids raised their hands, they liked dandelions. And then they asked her, how many parents of yours do they like dandelions? And then none of the kids raised their hand. And so somewhere between, 3rd grade and an adult, we decided that, dandelions are, the nemesis. So I thought that was really an interesting perspective.
Except me. I clearly haven't aged because I love dandelions.
Me too.
Well, you are the outlier there, so. But I'm just saying.
This was a good year for dandelions too. Oh my God, I have some beautiful pictures on my phone.
That's super funny. I like that a lot.
That's great. Yeah. Okay, Lomo. Ellen, do you have anything to report, Laura? About Lomo?
So Lomo is just but it's going. Laura, did you see that he sent? Did you get the email today from
Greg? Yes. So I did get a quote from Greg. Elle and I had talked about this a couple days ago, so I brought it up at Highway Committee again this morning. And I asked Ray if he wanted us to get all the signs in now or wait until spring. And he said he'd still, if we can get the signs in now, that'd be good. But he may reach out to his own place and get a quote on them too, Ellen, so we can just see if it's comparable. Because if, I love working with Greg, but if the highway can just order them and put them up, that's also very helpful. So he committed to helping me at the highway meeting this morning, which is very great. And we'll just get it piece by piece. Like Ellen and her family moved and watered a bunch of things from Kelt's farm. But I know that anytime there's any perennials that we can put over there, we should just keep thinking, let's plug that place full of perennials. But right now I think we're just working on delineating so it doesn't get mowed in the spring.
Yeah, I was concerned about that.
Laura, can we do a website update, with the NRI grant and the LOMO implementation? Like, hey, we are doing these things for the town. Like, would that be possible?
We can, but I would ask if you can just send me a paragraph or a summary of what you would want put on the website. That's much easier for me to pop up than make it myself. So send me what you want on the website and I'll put it there.
Sure. Like regarding the LOMO, do you have a final map or dimensions or something like that?
Yes, we do. Yep, we have the final map.
Like if you send,
and it's laminated. It's on the, or at least the one we started, because I laminated it and showed it to people at the farmers markets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the one. That's the final one. Yep.
Ellen, can you send me a photograph or something like that? Then I can write a little blurb and send it to Laura for the website.
Yeah, I can send you the final map. Yeah, I'll send you the final map. Yeah.
Thank you, Laura.
So I also just wanted to throw this out there. So Ashok, there are two more cases, at least in the hallways in the town hall, that are completely vacant. So if you wanted to, I don't know, I mean, we could just ask, we have to ask, but if you wanted to put anything in there to drum up business for your, for your NRI or anything like that, or, if you came up with some ideas, I could try to help you put that in there, or do creative, or anybody else, if you have any ideas, just to, throw them out there.
Sure, we can talk offline, I'd be happy to work with you on that.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing to do. Okay, number 8, historic.
Yeah, so I left this on here because we keep talking about it, but we don't actually have any updates, so sorry about that.
That's fine. Okay, so we're through all our reports, our discussion items, and do we have anything else we want to discuss? If not, I would wait for a motion to adjourn. If somebody wanted to make it.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second? I'll second it. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Would anybody like to stay here longer? Say nay. Okay, unanimously, the meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Oh, so long meeting.